Hello everybody, this is Mr. I'm going to be talking to you tonight about solving equations. That's solving for a variable, typically x, but sometimes different variables. Now, when you're solving an equation, the main goal is to get the variable on one side and the numbers on the other. It doesn't really matter which side they go on, but a lot of times you might go towards putting the variable on the left, but it really doesn't matter, and we'll do some examples. Now, we do have two properties that you need to know how to use. The additive identity property states that you can add or subtract anything you want to one side of the equation as long as you do the same thing to the other side. So that's kind of like a balance scale. Think about if I had 2 ounces of gold on one side and 2 ounces of gold on the other. If I subtracted 3 ounces of gold, well, that would be pretty silly, wouldn't it? If I subtracted 1 ounce of gold from one side, to balance it, I'd have to do the same thing to the other. So let's go ahead and take one example, and let me just insert a box real quick to cover it up. Okay, we'll take example x plus 6 equals 8. Now, in this small equation, you probably are just quickly solving it and saying, hello, my answer's 2. And that's true. But notice we have like a balance. We have this side is equal to this side because it says so with the equal sign. So what we're really doing is we're subtracting 6 from both sides. So if I subtract 6 from this side, I'm left with just x. If I subtract 6 from this side, I'm left with 8 minus 6, which gives me 2. Okay, nice and simple when you have all positives. Now let's try another one. Let me get that little dot thingy out of the way. Okay, let's try x minus 4 equals negative 3. Now in this case, you might not be able to do it in your head real easily, and if not, that's fine. But our goal is to isolate this x, to make it by itself. So we're going to do the opposite of what we have here with the number. It says subtract 4, so I'm going to add 4 to both sides. And notice what happens when I subtract 4 and add 4, I get just x. Now I add 4 over here. Remember our signs are opposite, so I really have to do 4 minus 3 to give me 1. This is the larger absolute value, so my answer is x equals 1. Okay, now let's get on to the other property, the multiplicative identity property. That's very similar to the additive property, but it states that you can multiply or divide anything you want on one side as long as you multiply or divide on the other. So let's take these equations. And I have the line underneath them just for a moment, but let's take 6x equals 36. Now again, you might be looking at that and going, well, I know 6 times 6 equals 36. And if you do that, that's wonderful. You just go ahead and solve it. But what we really do is we look at it and say, I'm multiplying by 6, so I need to do the opposite, which is divide by 6. And I've got it set up as a fraction division problem. So 6 divided by 6 gives me 1x. 36 divided by 6 gives me 6. So that's how I get my 6. Now let's try one over here. Let's try 5x equals negative 75. Now in this case I need to divide by 5, but I get a little bit different because on the right side I'm going to have negative 75 divided by positive 5. So a negative divided by a positive is always a negative, and I just do the arithmetic and I get positive 15. Okay, now when you're working on additive or multiplicative, let's go to this one. Now, just kind of temporarily ignore the red numbers because I had to put them there. But my original problem says, I'll get it, x divided by 6 equals 9. So notice what I'm doing. I'm dividing by 6, so I'm going to do the opposite of that and multiply by 6 on both sides. Those 6's will cancel out and I'll get x. But on the right side, I need to do 9 times 6 to give me 54. Okay, same type of thing on this equation over here. Notice what I've got. It looks a little bit different. It actually says x divided by -8 equals -21. So if it's dividing by -8, I'm going to have to multiply by -8, the opposite. I multiply both sides, and remember, negative times negative gives me positive 168. Okay, now we get into where we start having some of them together. When using the two properties together, let me scroll it up a little bit, insert a box. Okay, when using the properties together, always use this process. First, try to combine any like terms on either side of the equation. They might entail solving parts of the equation that have parentheses with distribution property. And then add or subtract variable and numbers to get the variables on one side and the numbers on the other. So we'll take, for example, this equation. 7x plus 12 equals 4x minus 9. Now notice I wrote here all terms are combined. Let's put a D there and be grammatically correct. So I can start moving the variables and numbers. So you can put variables on any side you want. A lot of people like to put them on the left, but if I look at this, I see I've got the larger variable here, and I've got 4 there, so why not subtract 4x from both sides? So what I'm going to get if I subtract 4x is 7 minus 4 gives me 3x. This 12 just comes on down. 4x minus 4x cancels out, and I get -9. Now I need to get the x by itself. I'm going to subtract 12 from both sides. So 3x plus 12 minus 12. So what I'm going to end up with is 3x equals -21. Remember, -9 minus 12 gives me -21. Then my last step is just to divide by the 3. I divide by 3, and -21 divided by 3 gives me -7. Okay, let's scroll down to another one. My original problem is, and just temporarily ignore those boxes and bubbles, I've got 2x plus 5 minus 7x equals 25 minus 3x minus 10. So it's probably best to combine like terms on each side of the equation. Now what I did is I boxed the left side of the like terms, 2x minus 7x, and I notice I boxed the minus 7x because that's basically now 2 minus 7, which gives me -5x. On the right side, I just chose a different color and shape. I've got to do the like terms 25 minus 10. So when I combine those like terms, I get down to this equation. -5x plus 5 equals -3x plus 15. Okay, now I can combine the variables and numbers. I can put the variables on any side I want. What I did is I chose to add 3x to both sides. You might have chosen to add 5x to both sides. So if I add 3x, it's going to cancel out to where I get -2x plus 5 equals 15. Now I have to subtract just the number 5 from both sides, and I end up with -2x equals 10. Now I need to divide by that -2, and notice I get 10 divided by -2 gives me -5. This can be pretty tough, but if you have any questions, email me at nardelli.efsc@gmail.com. Thanks.